That's where. All right. So.
Okay. Here, I'll switch here and get center.
Y'all are very met Denise.
Yes.
So I'm excited about that, but I'll tell you how I met her. She was a student in human development, right?
Mm-hmm.
At Cal State Long Beach, and I was the Black Student Union Chair, or advisor, I should say. But I was working as a faculty member in school psychology. But she was an up-and-coming student, very active in student events and things on campus, getting to know folks, but very focused on her career path. Did some good research as well, right, as an undergraduate. So, especially with the human development program at Cal State Long Beach was pretty strong.
Yeah.
So, then you were interested in graduate school.
Yeah.
Many different places. And Cal State Long Beach has a good program. But yeah, we'll get into some of the questions like how did you end up where you were at?
Yes.
But let's take a look. I got pictures.
It's the evolution. This was
yeah. So she was there, and I was thinking like that was a little bit ago.
It was.
Some other folks there. That's 2011.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a while ago.
But yeah. And I was very pleased that she was going into one of the helping professions, and really had kind of a journey, right? So,
yeah.
I'll let you talk a little bit more about that, but making it to become a speech and language specialist, speech and language pathologist, that's a big, that's a journey. So,
It was.
But I think you've, just in talking about the graduate school experience, you've shown that there's many different paths to get to where you want to go.
Yeah.
So if you're determined, you can find the right path to get to where you need to go. You're from San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Southeast
really
native.
From San Diego.
Yeah. Hey, Kelton and Roswell, Emerald Hills. Just so we know. Oh, okay. Oh, yes, you know. You know.
Right. So to see somebody who I knew, though, I'm from San Diego County growing up in Oceanside, but knowing some of the neighborhoods, and then seeing somebody at Cal State Long Beach, I'm like, oh, okay, we're here. We also went to church together. So just watching her develop and being able to get to this point where she's doing what she wanted to do.
Yeah.
Right? And that's exciting. My sense is, too, you spent kind of the time working with kids all throughout.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, that's correct.
Looking for those either volunteer or very direct opportunities, whether it's through student government or student civic or service organizations. That's what was going on. So our first question has to do with your training, right?
Yes.
So where did you get your training? I'm talking every undergrad all the way through. Where did you go to school? What was that like?
Okay, so I started my training at Cal State Long Beach. I originally was a biology major with hopes of going to med school. We see that didn't happen. Switched majors to human development, honestly, as just a way to get out because I needed to graduate, and I was determined to leave with a degree. Towards the end of my undergrad experience, a family friend tapped me on the shoulder and was like, hey, I think you'd be a great speech pathologist. And I'm like, what is this? Like, I was a semester and a half away from graduating at that point. And so it was too late to change trajectory. But I'm really thankful to her for doing that because she's been doing that she was doing that my entire life. And I had absolutely no idea. This is one of the fields where people legit don't know what it is that a speech language pathologist does. And from there, I started researching Postbac programs since I knew that I was not going to graduate with the necessary requirements for grad school, as well as my grades were not the best. So researched Postbac programs, fell in love with some on the East Coast, and right when I was getting ready to apply, met another young lady who was going to a Postbac program at Cal State San Marcos, decided to apply there, got in, did my Postbac there, and actually started my graduate journey there. That did not go so well. Unfortunately, I was invited to leave that program, and I did. and decided to take a second to really sit and think whether or not this was the field that I wanted to go into, and made a decision that yes, it is, and I know that I can make a good impact in this field, especially for people who aren't represented well in the field of speech language pathology and audiology.
So,
Mhm.
Cal State San Marcos.
Yes.
Reasons why people leave doctoral or graduate programs in general. Time, management, balancing, like work, home.
Yeah.
Relationships with professors sometimes.
Yes.
Very different path than what they said you were going to do versus what you're doing in the classroom.
Yes.
All of those, all of the above.
Yes.
Okay, and then kind of a feeling of either isolation or feeling like no one's supporting you.
Right there.
Okay.
Yes. And just to spare you all the details, it was the latter. Unfortunately, just was not a place where I was going to get the support that I needed, and continue to do research, continue to reach out to people, and just something really within my spirit was calling me to Hampton. So
what kind of programs did you look at?
I looked at other 3-year programs, and by 3-year programs, I mean schools that have postbacs and master's programs. I decided I wanted to leave the state. I decided specifically that I wanted to go to a HBCU, which is a historically black college or university. After my experience at Cal State San Marcos and even at Cal State Long Beach, I decided that I needed to go somewhere where I would be affirmed as a black woman, and somewhere where I knew that I would get the support from the community that I deserved, as well as a better understanding of what it is that our clients may be going through, who come from backgrounds such as mine where they may not be represented throughout the field, and may come up with clinicians, may have encounters with clinicians who don't understand them because of their differences. So applied to Hampton. Thankfully, I was accepted.
Where is Hampton?
Oh, thank you. I am rushing and doing this quickly. Hampton, the Hampton University, their motto is the home by the sea, is located in Hampton, Virginia, which is in the southeastern part of the country and the southeastern part of the state. It is close to Norfolk, Virginia, close to Virginia Beach, and Norfolk, Hampton, Virginia Beach, and 5 other cities make up what's called Hampton Roads. So if you heard of Pharrell, if you know who Missy Elliott is, if you know who Timbaland is, they are all from that area. And if you've heard of Pharrell, you've all heard of Something in the Water, which took place in Hampton Roads at Virginia Beach, Virginia. Yeah, sorry. Talk fast.
I think there's another guy who's from there, Allen Iverson.
Oh, I did not know that.
Oh, yeah.
I used to love AI. I used to ball back in the day, and he was my favorite.
Yeah.
My experience at Hampton was precisely what I needed. I was affirmed by the professors. I was affirmed just by people in the community. And that is something I would really encourage you all to look at when pursuing higher education, pursuing jobs if you're going to move, is really look at the community. The program may be great, the job may just seem like it's everything you want, but then you get there and you're like, holy smokes, where am I? But the community was fantastic. And by that I mean I've had, the day that I got off the plane, I had people stop me in the stores because they could tell immediately I wasn't from there from the moment they said hello. And mind you, the part of Virginia that I was in is considered the South. Virginia is a weird state where they're like South and East Coast at the same time, from a cultural standpoint. And so culturally, Hampton Roads is Southern. And so people speak to you. You walk in, men hold the door for women, like they will wait for you, look you dead in your eye, young man. You would have held the door for me. And they say hello, good day, how are you? And they stop and wait for you to respond. So just that type of community was great. I had people pray over me who didn't know me, like in the middle of the store. kid you not. And this was my first day there. I'm in Target, and the woman's like, oh, you're not from here? What are you doing? Oh, you're going to be blessed. We're going to pray over you right now. And I appreciate it. So
That's the South.
it's the South, and I absolutely loved it. If I could transfer the people here, I would. Unfortunately, there's things about the South that I can't live with, and so here I am back. So my training at Hampton was honestly, it was great. My professors, let me mention this real quick. Being at a historically black college or university, they take your education very seriously, and they take you not showing that you are stepping up to your full potential very seriously and very personally. Like, professors will physically pull you to the side and say, hey, what is going on? They may or may not use colorful language, but they are going to do whatever they need to get your attention and let you know that, hey, you know what? I see that we're not putting our best foot forward. What needs to happen? Where are you struggling? Come into my office right now, and we are going to fix this. Like, they take it very personally, and that is something that is prevalent in black culture. Like, you may hear parents tell their kids when they go out and be like, you know what, don't you go out here and embarrass me. I had professors tell me this. Do not go out into this world and embarrass me, because they're going to get phone calls and be like, so that's your student? Oh, she did what? And I will get phone calls to this day from professors like, so I heard. But thankfully that hasn't happened, because I'm not going to embarrass them. But I mention that because it's important to know why these universities are still here and still relevant and still needed.
Were the classes harder than Cal State San Marcos?
So the classes honestly were the same. Like, I was actually really grateful that a lot of the books that I have from Cal State San Marcos were the same ones that I used there. And I just took them on like a whim, just praying that like I could use them as supplemental material, but they ended up being the exact same books. So I was grateful for it, because one, it saved me money, and two, it affirmed to me that I was still getting a top-notch education. Yes, so my training there, in the classroom, it's a 2-year program that I did. We had to do a total of 1,440 hours of direct service with students, and in different settings. I will be honest that one of my settings was cut short thanks to COVID, being in like an adult hospital, but they did do their best to try to work around it. But that is one thing I will mention, like for your graduate programs, and as I'm sure you guys are unfortunately experiencing here, is that COVID has really forced us to try to work around a lot of things. So that is one area where unfortunately I do feel like my experience was lacking, but we were at the beginning of a pandemic, so I can't blame Hampton for this. They did not start this. So that was my training. I'm currently in my clinical fellowship year, which is like residency for a doctor or for psychologists. And with the clinical fellowship year, typically it's supposed to be like 1 year if you are working full time. It has to be a total of 36 weeks. I have a supervisor who checks in and makes sure that I am doing things by the book and not just letting the kids run amok, and that we're actually making progress, and who is there if I have any questions or concerns.
So
yes.
You're done with all your coursework at Hampton?
Yes.
Now, are you still connected with them as far as the hours, or?
No.
Okay.
No. So the hours are now completely on me. With
so
the
licensure here.
Yes. So I have to have a state licensure, which the name is long. It's the California Speech, Language, Hearing, and Audiology Dispensary Board, I believe is the full name. It's a long name. And through ASHA, which is the American Speech, Language, and Hearing Association, and that's our national board. And so
have you been involved with ASHA?
I haven't been involved with ASH as far as taking like any leadership roles, but I am a member. Yes, you have, let me not say you have to. There's a lot of things going on in the field where they are pushing that you may not have to have a membership, but in order to be licensed, you do have to have a membership. You do have to complete a certain number of hours.
Were you at ASHA for this picture?
No, this was at Cal State San Marcos.
Ah.
Yeah, so that was one of my cohort mates there. I love her. She just had some kids. She just had twin boys. So yeah. So no, this was like a for real like evolution.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's my training.
And so you're a member, professional, or what is, have you been to the conventions?
Yes.
So tell me about that.
So I went to the convention. I started going to the national conventions in 2015, and I was still in the Postbac program. I've gone to the state conventions, which is CASHA, CSHA, which is the state level, the California Speech Language Hearing Association. The first convention that I went to was in Denver, Colorado, and for whatever field you all decide that you want to go into, I would highly encourage you to go to their conventions. You do not have to be a member to go. And if you're students, there are typically ways that you can get it reduced even more than what they say on the website, and or free. So,
especially if you volunteer.
Yes, especially if you volunteer. You just have to figure out how to contact the right person. That's really all it is. You get a hold of the right person and you could probably get what you want, which is free. But Colorado, I'm so thankful that I went to that one because I learned so much about the field. And one thing that I found interesting about the field of speech language pathology and audiology is that it came out of the elitist class. Technically, the beginnings were in like the late 1800s-ish. And it came out of the higher class wanting to have someone to kind of teach individuals who weren't grasping the concepts of like polite society, and like help them with their speech so that they could better blend in and things of that nature. And it makes a lot of sense as to where we are in the field today that was our beginnings, because at that time it wasn't something that was rooted in survival. Like, if you weren't properly producing certain speech sounds, it was not going to determine whether or not you were going to make it in life. It was, can you work? Can you bring home money? Can you make sure that we eat? Do we have a roof over our head and clothes on our backs? Like, that was it. So that was a very informative convention that I went to. And it was a great time and I learned a lot, but that was one of the biggest lessons that I took. I would encourage you also to go to the conventions to use as a networking opportunity. Networking. What is our word? Networking. I'm telling you right now, networking will open doors that your education won't. I'm going to be real honest with you. Real honest. Networking will literally open doors that nothing else will. So, never be afraid to.
How did you get started networking since you got the class repeating all this stuff?
Yes.
How did you get started doing that?
Well, one, I realized I kind of naturally do it. However, one way that I started on a professional level was through my sorority. I'm a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, which was founded in Washington, D.C. in the year of 1920. And just so you all know, the Zetas are back on campus. If you see them, we wear royal blue and pure white. Tell them hello. They're great women. A few of them are in graduate programs here, and I believe there are two who are undergrads.
Assistants.
Yes. So if you see ladies in blue and white and the letters Z, Phi is a circle that looks like it has an I in it, and B, you can tell them hello. Say, hey, we met your sorority sister, Denise. They've met me, so they will actually know who I am. Like, random person.
So with that networking, so I imagine the person who told you about the job maybe that's the first part of the networking? I don't
For
know.
this, yes.
Yeah, how did, okay, so
Yes,
that starts, and what's the next thing to network?
So the next part of the networking is that can open the door, but you have to follow through. It does absolutely no good if someone opens the door for you and you don't walk through and you don't know what to do when you get to the other side. So your education is definitely important. I don't want to say that it's not. It absolutely is. But you have to follow through when you walk through that door. When you get an opportunity, it is at that point, it's up to you. Your friend, your coworker, whoever it is, their job is done. It is now up to you to make sure that you follow through on whatever it is that needs to be done. And that's what I did when it came to the family friend who tapped me on the shoulder and was like, hey, I think you'd be great at this.
Have you met any speech and language pathologists in your sorority?
I actually have not. Yeah, surprisingly.
Okay.
Surprisingly, I have not. Well, actually, no. I'll still say it's surprisingly that I haven't met another Zeta.
Do you generally connect with other educators or helping professionals?
I do. Yeah. So in California, actually, a lot of the Zetas that I went to school with became lawyers, which was really cool and another needed profession. But yes, definitely met individuals within my sorority, within other organizations. I don't know if you know the organization that Dr. Gamble is a part of. No? Okay, that's okay. Anyways, moving along. It's about me. But yes, there's a lot of Zetas who are in healthcare. One of my sorority sisters that I came through with, she's a nurse. Another one, she's a psychologist. Another one, she is one of Army veteran, and she works for the VA currently on the legal side of things.
So do y'all get together and talk about
we
your
do
careers and where you're going?
We do.
Okay.
We do. Well, some of us.
Yeah.
Some of us.
Yeah.
We will get together. You form bonds with people, and the ones of us who have formed bonds, we definitely get together and we talk about, the trajectory of where we want our careers to go, what it'll look like, and also how we can help support each other. So that's been really great.
So,
oh, sorry.
No, this is good. You knew you wanted to be a speech and language specialist or speech and language pathologist. You make it to Hampton. Now you're back out here. You're doing what you went to school to do.
I am.
What's that like? What's your favorite part of the job right now?
Okay, so, one, being done with school was a small little miracle in itself, so very happy about that. I honestly at one point was not sure if I would ever complete a master's program. Being back in San Diego and actually practicing here it's a dream. I'm gonna be real honest, it is. My first full year being back, so 2020 to 2021 school year, I was working completely virtually, as many of us were, and a lot of you going to school completely virtually, for a district that was actually in Northern California, and that was quite an experience. The majority of my caseload was Spanish speaking and or Mixteco, Mixteco. And I learned so much from my students as well as their parents, and it was a little surreal to actually be finally doing what I was doing and to have those connections with the parents and to feel like the sigh of relief to come over them to know that they had a clinician who they could understand and that they didn't need an interpreter to help them understand, and that they didn't have to be worried that their child would be missing out on essential services because of a language barrier.
So, you speak Spanish?
I do. I told them.
And, okay. How did you learn Spanish?
So I learned Spanish at a wonderful school here called Longfellow. It's a now TK, Transitional Kindergarten through 8th grade school. And it's a Spanish immersion program. And what that means is that from the moment that you start in either kindergarten or in TK, everything is in Spanish. So my first academic language is Spanish, which later down the road became interesting because I realized I didn't fully know how to read in English. I just memorized words. I didn't know the rules. I learned how to read first in Spanish. And Spanish makes a lot more sense than English does. It follows its rules all the time. English doesn't. So that's how I learned Spanish. And also, my dad's father grew up in Veracruz, Mexico. And that was one reason why my mother pushed to have me go to that school so that I could have a connection with his sisters and siblings because he had already passed by the time I was born. So that was, it was something that really did help me connect, like, with part of my family as well as with neighbors and being able to help in different situations.
So being bilingual, you forgive me, I'm being a little bit. Being bilingual was an asset to your job?
Oh, absolutely. It was to this job, to other jobs I've had, it's, helped push me over the edge in quite a few jobs that I've applied for other opportunities. I'm sure even with, graduate schools and undergrad. So yeah, being bilingual is definitely an asset. And so it's not just being bilingual or knowing another language. One thing that I really appreciate about the school that I went to, Longfellow, or Escuela Longfellow as we call it, is that they really push to us that to fully understand a language, you have to understand the culture. So, like, what does that mean? I'm actually asking you guys, what do you think that means? Everything? Okay.
I remember having to bring food.
Yes. Yes. We used to have multicultural ceremonies at the end of every year. Unfortunately, COVID has put a stop to that until we don't know when. But culture defines everything we do. Culture defines you sitting in your chairs the way that you do. Culture defines the fact that your bodies are facing me right now. Culture defines the fact that none of you have turned around and been like, oh, I'm tired of this lady. Like, she can, be quiet. Like, culture defines all of that. Culture defines how you think. Like, and when we think about different languages and different groups of people, using Spanish, and I'll use specifically when it comes to like Latin, like Latino America, versus more Western cultures that aren't Latin based. And with Latin based, I mean the language. We can see how people even behave differently. Like, what's something that you guys notice when it comes to specifically like Latino culture? Is there anything that you guys can name? No? Yes.
Usually when you pass by someone older than you, you say like, buenas tardes,
Yes.
buenos dias. It's kind of just out of respect.
Yes. You speak. That's the same in Black culture. Like, you don't walk into someone's house or walk by another person, especially not an older person, and not speak to them. Because they will turn their heads real quick and be like, oh, so you don't know how to speak? Oh, no te puedes hablar? Like, okay. What about like just the familiarity amongst people? Like, that's something that's very different than a lot of other Western cultures. There's a lot of touching, there's hugging, there's kissing. Like, and the language reflects that. Language reflects culture. So that's a big thing that they push for us in school, and it's something that stuck with me. And to this day, I can see it. So that's something to think about when you're interacting with other people within your own ethnic group, people within your own generation. School is really look at how the language and the culture go hand in hand, and how that language reflects the culture. So it's not just about being bilingual and knowing how to translate things in your head. No, that's not it. I think in Spanish. I don't think in English and then think of what I'm going to say in Spanish unless I'm interpreting. That's the only time. If I'm speaking to someone in Spanish, I am thinking in Spanish. And that's the difference. So, yes, that's why being bilingual is an asset. That was a tangent.
I think you like your job then.
I do. I actually am having a really great time with my job. I started therapy this week, and I'll share a little story with you that happened yesterday.
For yourself or with the students?
That happened with the students.
Okay. Just checking. Just letting the folks know.
Oh, yes. This was during therapy. So I pulled a group, and it was 3 students, or no, 2. 2 students, they 4th or 5th grade. I can't remember what grade they're in. But we're this week, because it's the first week of therapy, we're just, getting to know each other, doing all about me. It's really simple. One of my students volunteers that he cusses a lot, just out the blue. So we're sitting there, they're telling me all about me and stuff, and he goes, "Yeah, I cuss a lot." And I'm like, "Okay, thank you for telling me. That's interesting." But not at school. Like, at school, I only cuss, like, a little bit of time, but, like, at home, I cuss, like, half the time. And I'm like, all right, well, if you feel like cussing, let me know, and maybe we can find another word to help you express whatever feelings that you're feeling. He's like, okay, like, maybe. And surprisingly enough, does this count as therapy? It absolutely does. Like, this is something that I love about my job, is that I can turn anything in the world into therapy. And also, it doesn't stop, like, at the classroom. So I know a lot of people, when they think of speech-language pathologists, you automatically think of schools. We think about stuttering. We think about R's is a big one. Like, oh, they don't know how to pronounce their R's. Yes, we do that, but we're also in a lot of other areas. We're in hospitals. We're in skilled nursing facilities. We're in assisted living. We're in private practice. We're in contracting. We're in home health. We're traveling. Like, there's a lot of things that you can do. And one fun thing that I don't know if you guys knew, and I did not know until grad school, is we're swallowing experts. Fun. Y'all take that however you want.
Say that again?
We're swallowing experts.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to make sure everybody.
Oh, yeah. No, that's what I said.
Okay.
And yes, I know who I'm talking to. You can think of it like that too. Think about it however you want. So, however, when it comes to swallowing, obviously that's probably not what it's getting into. But on the medical side, what it's looking at is typically, it's not always with this population, but typically it's with stroke survivors. And what's happening is that it's impeding, it goes into feeding. So speech-language pathology falls also into feeding, which I love feeding therapy. I had the chance to do feeding therapy with one of my externships in a pediatric hospital, and it was one of the best experiences I've had. And so you can work with brand new infants, like newborn infants, all the way up through adults with feeding. And so when it comes to swallowing for adults who have had stroke, is essentially a lot of them are learning to swallow again. And while that's a very simple thing that a lot of times we take for granted, it's very intricate. There's so many muscles that are involved and have to work simultaneously in order for you to swallow properly. And it happens, in like 3 seconds. Goes from your lips into your mouth, down your throat, through your esophagus, into your stomach, and it's done. You don't ever have to think about it again. But for individuals who have suffered from stroke, it can be a very, very tiring activity, and it can impede their nutrition. And so that's where we have to step in with that. And for newborns, it's with latching on and being able to take breast milk, take it out of a bottle. And again, it has to do with feeding. It can, for kids and older people as well, it could deal with aversions. So like, we may think that a kid is just a picky eater, when in reality they're having aversions to food. Like, I know we all have things we don't like, but like some kids that I worked with, it was literally everything. Like, they couldn't even tolerate a certain food being in the room. Like, you brought it in the door, if they see it, they're screaming, they're kicking, they're ready to fight you. So it's a really vast field, and it's one where you can find your niche. So I would encourage you to look into it. Okay.
I'm thinking for you. You seem to like this job so much. Is
I
there
do.
anything you don't like about the job?
Yes,
Okay.
paperwork. I hate paperwork so much. But you have to do it in this, well, everywhere you have to do billing because you would like to get paid. That's important. In the schools, we bill Medi-Cal, or I believe it's Medi-Cal throughout all of California. And it's also how we make sure that we're following like their IEPs, which is an individualized education plan. So we have goals that I have to meet, and I can do that a lot of different ways as long as it's safe, of course, for school. And hopefully the kids, there's some buy-in for them. So paperwork I don't enjoy. Sometimes I don't enjoy IEP meetings because sometimes they can run really long, and that's not always the funnest thing. So I think those two things are probably like my least favorite, but everything else I love about the job. I love kids, so I know even when I start to dip my toe into like the medical side, I want to work with children. They're the best. They give you immediate like love and stuff. Adults, they're like cats, so they may or may not. I don't have time for all that. Like, look, I helped you. You tell me I did a good job. See, give me that positive reinforcement, so I come back and you come back. See, yes. So yeah, no, I absolutely love my job. It was listed, I believe, in Forbes as one of the best jobs in regards to pay versus stress. And that was something that I really considered when I was thinking about career paths after undergrad and towards the end of undergrad, just because I realized it within myself, like, I don't want to be stressed out just to get a bunch of money, like, because I'm going to end up, like, burning myself out, and that's not what I want. I want to be able to have a good, like, work-home balance, and thus far I feel like I'm able to do that with speech-language pathology. Yes. I have to turn my head.
Well, any advice
Yes.
for students getting into grad school in general? You gave one piece, that was networking. We got that piece. I'm also curious, even down to getting letters of recommendation, writing your personal statement.
Yeah.
Any advice along those lines?
Yes. So when it comes to getting recommendations and letters of recommendation specifically, do not wait till the last minute. Ask your professors, your bosses, ask them early and ask them often. Like, set a reminder on your phone, on your Google Calendar to remind you, oh, it's been 2 weeks, I haven't heard from them. Hey, how are you doing? Just, wanted to say hi. Have you had a chance to, sit down and work on that letter of recommendation? Would you like me to send you some information to be included in that letter? Like, make it easy for them. Make it and this is another thing, when you are asking for a letter of recommendation, make it easy for them to say yes, make it hard for them to say no. This is assuming you did a good job in their class, okay? Don't harass people if, you didn't do well. But seriously, on a serious note, make it easy for them to say yes. Like, your professors, just like you, are stressed, especially when it comes to the end of the semester. They have deadlines for things just like you do. You don't want to be scrambling, and you don't want them to scramble on your letter of recommendation, because this is essentially your cover letter that is going to the grad schools, and it can make or break you. So that, if your grades aren't the best like mine were in undergrad, and by not the best, I mean terrible, look into Postbac programs. They are your friend. And if you don't want to do a Postbac program, look into retaking those classes that you did
What's
poorly
a
on.
Postbac program?
Oh, thank you. A Postbaccalaureate program is a program that you can do after you've completed an undergraduate degree in whatever field, and it's typically in a different field than what you received your bachelor's in. And what it does is it allows you to get the prerequisites for a graduate program in a shorter amount of time. The ones for speech language pathology have all been 1 year. If you're looking for like med school, that may be longer. Law school, maybe longer still. But it allows you to get those classes that you need that are going to make you eligible. And it also allows graduate programs to see that you are determined. It allows them to see how well you could do in the core classes, and it brings up your GPA. So it's not for naught, you know, like once your undergraduate degree is done, that's not the end of the world. Trust me, it is not.
How did you hear about this Postbac stuff?
Oh, researching and also attending different events on campus at Cal State Long Beach. When I was originally still interested in med school, I went to a talk that a young man came and did, and he did a Postbac program so that he could get into med school. Thankfully now, especially, you know, that we have cameras that are functional, unlike when I was in undergrad, a lot of them are online, so you would not have to move. When previously you would have to move for that Postbac program and then probably move again for your master's experience. One more thing that I would say when it comes to graduate school specifically is this is something that my cousin really put into my head, and I thank her for it, is that one, the worst thing that they can say is no, and a no is always a not right now. So a no is not the end of the road. Trust me, I've gotten so many rejection letters when it came to grad school, put out so much money, but still made it. So yeah, a no is not the end of the line. And also, I'm not encouraging this at all, but F's are not the end of the line either. I believe it was Henry Ford who said, failure is not the end of the road. It's a chance to begin again, this time more wisely. I may have the person wrong. I'm paraphrasing. I know that's not the exact words, but that's what it is. Failure is not the end of the road, so remember that when it comes to grad school and entering. And I'm sure all of you guys are doing well. Just saying.
You gotta make your own name.
Yeah.
Right. So, any advice for students considering your specific career in speech and language pathology?
Yes.
Like, and perhaps even like things they can do now as undergrads to be ready for the job.
Absolutely. First and foremost, what's our word?
Networking.
Yes. Network. That is your first thing that you always want to do. Also, I would say look for opportunities to volunteer or to, oh my goodness, words. Speech language pathology, I'm having a bit of anomia. If you know what that is, thumbs up to you. I can remember anomia, but I can't think of internship. There we go. How to work it. Doing unpaid internships. I know it's not, the most glamorous. We all need money. However, you have to look at how you are going to ultimately monetize your time. So if you can land an internship or shadow someone, if they will let you come with them to the hospital. I don't know how things are right now, but if you're able to get into the hospital, you better high step your way there. Here, you guys are already at San Diego State, and I mentioned earlier that this program is phenomenal. It is legit the Stanford of speech language pathology.
I think we like to think of it as the SDSU.
Oh, you know what? You're right. That was rude of me.
I'm just an alumni.
You're right. This is the SDSU of speech language pathology. Okay. This is the top of the mountain.
Right.
There we go.
Right.
Thank you for relaying that information, because I was like, what's wrong? That's a whole other school. Like, this isn't a top-notch university when it is.
I got t-shirts, like, we're in here.
You're for real on this. Yes. So yes, no, this is a phenomenal program. You have some amazing people who are still here. If you go down on the wall, and oh my gosh, he'd be so mad that I forgot his last name. First name is Bob or Robert. He was actually the president of CASHA when I was in my Postbac program. Wonderful man. So if you know him, He is a great person to speak to. Absolutely phenomenal person. He's very knowledgeable, very personable, which typically speech language pathologists are, but I mean, you got some honorary ones too. So I would say definitely reach out to people. What I did, and this is just because of how I am as an individual, I not cold called people, but cold emailed people at different graduate programs. I did that to Hampton. I did that with San Marcos. I did it other places too.
Did you look at Alabama A&M?
I didn't.
I
know. It did.
Okay.
I didn't walk through the door.
All right. Gotcha.
I know.
But
the Lord led me to
you looked
Hampton.
at several different places.
I did. I looked at quite a few places, and even places that I ultimately didn't end up applying to. I decided that after speaking to someone at the university. There was just something that rubbed them wrong about me in my spirit. And I know I've said in my spirit a couple times. What I mean by that is just inside of me, in my gut. And just something rubbed me wrong about them. And it's like, if you're rubbing me wrong over the phone or through the email, like, I don't know. I don't know that that's somewhere that I want to commit to, one, spending my money, but two, even more so than that, spending my time. Like, I will push this until my last breath. Your time is valuable. You can never get your time back. You can always get money. Always. But your time you can never get back. So don't waste that. So networking, reaching out to people, internships or shadowing, conventions again. That's an opportunity to network. It's an opportunity to learn whether or not the field is really what you want. It's an opportunity to see different schools there, because conventions always have recruiters there from every single different school. And you could sit down and you could talk to all of them at once and get a feel for them, instead of trying to filter through them yourself. So I think, yes, those would be the main things. And if you have an opportunity to visit the campus, do that, because that could change your mind too. Actually changed my mind in undergrad. Yeah, I actually didn't go to my dream school that I got into, which was Xavier University in New Orleans, which is another HBCU. Because I went and visited, and this was just before Katrina when I graduated, and the city of New Orleans, unfortunately, it just depressed me, and I was I knew then I couldn't do 4 years there, so decided not to. So yes, not at that time.
And a lot of the schools were closed too.
Oh yeah, sadly, this was really unfortunate. A lot of students actually ended up at Cal State Long Beach. So many people got displaced by Katrina. It was absolutely devastating. Absolutely devastating.
Questions?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
You've brought up a couple times about how Postbac can help in one instance with less than optimal grades.
Mm-hmm.
And for your career specifically for speech and language, what would that range be considered?
Oh, excellent question. Thank you so much for asking that. So speech language pathology and audiology is a crazy competitive field. When I was applying the first round for grad school, the average GPA that was accepted at most grad schools was a 3.6. I believe it has raised since then, and somehow some programs, their average is a 3.9, which is wild. But I would say, remember, that is an average. And I know all of us can do some math, I'm not saying we all, went past calc, which is fine, but we know how averages work. So you're going to have some people under that. You're going to have some people who were crazy above it. So consider that. Also consider whether or not the program has or requires the GRE. A lot of programs have decided to waive that or to completely get rid of it because they realize that there's a lot of biases that come along with standardized assessments. And that is something that we are actively even working on within the field of speech language pathology. And I'll touch on it real quick. A lot of the biases come because the way that these standardized assessments were normed was not actually on the full, was not representative of the population as a whole. It doesn't take in cultural differences, didn't take in age differences, things like that. So there was a big push to have it removed. Some schools responded that they would remove the GRE. Other schools decided to waive it, and they may still require it. So that's another thing to consider. Do you want to take the GRE? And also, how will your scores affect you? Are they going to help you, or are they going to harm you? So that was a good question.
Other thing, GPA is a stronger predictor of how someone will do in graduate school.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why Postbac programs have become more prevalent in many different fields, because they know, okay, so your GPA didn't hit, well, here's another opportunity. Because even if you did better on a test, that still doesn't guarantee you're going to do as well in the graduate school environment. It's about being able to maintain within a certain environment and rigor, and then be balanced, usually work in life, some of those things, or being able to get your financial aid and all those other pieces to be able to make it in there. Graduate school is still, in some regards, a very privileged activity.
Yes.
Right? And there's usually kind of a window for the age range, but that has opened up, I would say, the last, definitely 20 years, but last 10 years for sure, it has really opened up. So I'll give you an example real quick. University of Phoenix, people are like, oh, whatever. And then USC said, they're taking our students.
Mm-hmm.
We better make an online program.
Yep.
Rutgers says, we better have an online program. University of Michigan, it starts spreading, and so now more graduate schools are realizing, okay, we're actually missing out on a broader pool of students that other for-profit institutions were getting. And the ones that survived the Obama administration purge of for-profit institutions, everybody remember this? Right? You're sitting on your couch, and you're not doing anything, you should go to school.
Yeah.
Right? And they were taking people's money, but they weren't,
Yeah.
their graduation rates were extremely low, right? And so the Obama administration got rid of a lot of those for-profit institutions, but what those for-profit institutions did was create a change within the market, which allowed people greater access to take courses online at prestigious universities, as it were, or realizing, oh, University of Michigan is just like Hampton, is just like Cal State Stanislaus, right? They're all having the same books and reading the same thing, because now people can exchange information online. You can get your textbooks online. All these other higher ed has changed significantly, and hopefully it's to your benefit as graduate students. So you have access to things that that were not available when I was a student. There was correspondence classes, but people would look at them like those are lesser than. Now, the playing field is much more even when it comes to accessing graduate school courses.
Yes.
So you'll have an opportunity to find some of that balance.
To that real quick, you mentioned different schools in, Hampton, University of Michigan, things like that. That is another thing that when you get to, honestly, even at an undergraduate level, is that your school matters, but what matters more is that you walk away with that degree. Nobody can tell me anything different just because I went to Hampton University versus San Diego State. My degree holds the exact same amount of weight that a degree from here does, that a degree from UCLA does, that a degree from UC Santa Barbara does. My degree holds the exact same amount of weight. It's all about how you decide to throw that weight. And I choose to throw that weight in a way to where I'm knocking everybody down because I'm going through. Okay? So remember that. Remember that wherever you decide to go, your degree holds the same amount of weight. You will encounter people who will try to make you feel like it doesn't. And I realized that I did that by using that other university.
I would say
The
too,
tree.
My dad used to say this to me, it doesn't matter where you go to school,
It
you
doesn't.
finish.
Yes.
And if you start messing up on the job, then people start asking questions.
Oh, right there. Then they're going to talk bad about you.
But if you're doing
in your
well,
school.
people will get over it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You you are learning the exact same thing. Yes, ma'am.
You said you worked in the school setting. Can you tell me more about like your day-to-day activities that you might do with those students, and also like you work at 8 to 4, 8 to 5?
So, cool thing when it comes to the school setting, so real fast, it depends on whether you're hired directly like through a district and you're a salaried employee or if you're hourly. I've been both now. As an hourly employee with my previous job, I had to work 8 to 5 to clock those hours. As a salary employee, they're like, as long as you get all your work done, you go ahead. Like, get all your work done, make sure you're seeing the students. So one thing, and this is why I love kids, it's all play. Everything is play. I mean, I have fun every single day. And legit, when I tell you that anything can be therapy, anything can be therapy. Bubbles, especially with little kids, that is my jam. Like, I did a whole articulation. So articulation deals with how you pronounce like your sounds. It's how you produce your sounds. I did a whole lesson, which was an hour long when I was at the hospital and even in the school setting online with bubbles. Why? Because my kid was throwing the whole fit, and the only thing that he wanted was bubbles. So guess what? Baby, today we are doing bubbles. And can you tell me, bubbles. Ooh, pop. Ooh, can you pop the bubble? Wow, that's following directions. That's therapy. Identifying the bubbles, touching the bubbles. Like, absolutely anything can be therapy. I've done therapy on you guys right now, and you didn't even know it. So, look at that. I'm just kidding. I didn't therapize you. I'm just kidding.
Well, you were doing a little bit of...
could.
You did
I mean, I
some
did do a little bit. We did.
Got to teaching and, yeah.
I mean, you guys are using whole body listening. Look at you. But so a day-to-day looks like I come in. I like to get to school around like 8 o'clock. That's just kind of my little comfort area. But school, my sessions, the earliest that I start my sessions is 9 a.m. Because at least in the school setting, you technically have to wait until like school starts. However, when we were online, it was more based off the parent schedule. Because as we know, that was just a real wonky time. So the earliest that I had sessions then was 8 a.m., but I had some parents who wanted earlier, and I was like, no, ma'am. And I had some parents who wanted like sessions at 5 p.m., and I was like, no, ma'am. So my sessions can start anywhere from 9 a.m. and go all the way until starting at 3, because the kids get out, the elementary gets out at 3:30, the junior high gets out at 3:45. So I want to make sure that they have enough time to catch the bus or to get picked up from their parents. So I just come, I eat breakfast at school because I don't have time at home. I go into my office, make sure that I have whatever activity pulled up for the day or like set up. I keep games in the room. I actually put some poster paper on the wall outside of where my office is located so the kids could vote on games that they like, because I don't know what they like anymore. And thankfully, like, they're really enjoying it. And even kids that aren't in speech are participating in that, which is great because it gets my kids to participate. And then I have sessions, and the session length depends on what their total hours are in their IEP. So the shortest length of time for my sessions is 30 minutes. The longest that I have right now is 45, and that's at one time. And so there may be students that I see once a week for 30 minutes or once a week for 45 minutes, and students that I see twice a week for 60 minutes, so that I can make sure at the end of the year that I hit all of their service hours. And hopefully, the goal is, of course, always to, you know, help to guide them closer to their goals. And I'll do a real quick tangent on that. As a speech language pathologist, my job is to be a coach. I am not a miracle worker. I do not have a magic wand, which a lot of people think. And if you decide to go into this field and work particularly with children, you will realize that. People are like, oh, put them in speech, it'll fix it, it'll fix it, it'll fix it. No, ma'am. My job is I'm a coach. I provide opportunities, I provide strategies, and I provide assistance. That is my job. And I meet the student where they are. That is the biggest thing, and that goes for any certain, let me not speak for other, stay in my lane. Let me speak for any area of speech language pathology. Your job is to meet the student, the client, the patient where they are. Like, you cannot pull them and make them reach their goals. It is going to be on them. It is going to be on their own time. But the great thing is that I'm done every day at the latest by 4:30. And I'm actually trying to set it up so that most of the week I can leave when the kids leave and have a day for just like paperwork and to like do assessments of new students and meetings and things like that, so that I can go home or I can go to the beach or I can go skate or maybe I can just go to a taco shop. Like, so I can, fill my cup back up and do self-care. So yes, speaking again into like the balance. So thank you very much for that. Yes, ma'am.
So for like networking,
Mm-hmm.
so you introduce yourself, but then I don't really know how to go about it after that, especially like as an undergrad.
Okay.
Would you have any tips on like some things that are good to say or like questions to
Absolutely.
ask?
So and being an undergrad and being on a university where there are so many different majors, I would encourage you not to do like the cold calling first.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you were to bump into somebody, because it happens, I would say have some key things in your head that you want to say to that person. Have questions ready. Say for instance, I were to run into whoever the current president of the United States is at a particular time. I would immediately want to introduce myself, say, hi, my name is Denise, Wright. It's great to meet you. You know what? I really loved what you did in XYZ. Like, know a little bit about their field. And from there, you can ask them, would it be okay if I set up some time to speak with you? I have some questions about the field. I'm really interested in it. So when you express your interest, that typically encourages people to respond. I think for the most part, it's human nature to want to share. But again, yeah.
People are selfish.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that like in a like they're negative. It's just you're kind of egocentric about the things that you're excited about.
Yeah.
So if you ask a professor about their research,
Oh, yeah.
nobody asks me about my research. My own family doesn't ask me about my research. My research is literally on family.
Yeah.
So, like, they don't care. Like, are you eating well? Are you staying out of trouble? Like, that's where they're at.
Yes.
Right? But if a student comes and asks me as a professor, hey, I read this article that you did on X, Y, and Z. I'm interested in researching similar things. I'm going to remember you. Now, I may not necessarily remember all these others, but that stands out. And the next time, like, we go through applications, like, oh, yeah, this is the student who contacted me, who's interested in X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. Now, their GPA may be here, but they got some volunteer experience. They really want it. So they meet the minimum requirements compared to this person who's everything's up here. They have no volunteer experience, and I don't know who they are. Mm-hmm. Even though they wrote an essay, I don't know who they are. But I know this student because they've expressed this interest.
Yes.
So I think it's good to do research. So if you're looking at programs here on campus, I've helped students at universities where I've been, and they're not even going to go to my university for graduate school, but they're interested in the profession. Mm-hmm. And I'll see them at a professional conference and connect with them because they ask those kind of questions. But it's a very small world. Speech and language, psychology, these things, you run into people again and again after a while. Mm-hmm. So if your networking starts now with your professors, and what they do is when they write you a letter of recommendation, it really is saying, I know this person and they're ready for graduate school. Mm-hmm. You get to know a professor, even if they sometimes may not be your direct professor, but they're writing this letter to say, this person is ready for X, Y, and Z. So someone might write you a letter of recommendation.
Yes.
Did I do it on time?
Yeah.
Okay.
You did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You did write me a letter, Rick. So yes, definitely ask about like any research that they've done. And also ask them about any opportunities for you to do research, any opportunities for you to volunteer, and any opportunities to come to networking events. So conventions, again, always ask about that, and they will be more than willing to tell you. And more than likely, you'll get a whole contact out of that. And if somebody gives you their contact, use it. Use it. Like, you will hear a professor say all the time, well, you know, I gave them my contact information and I never heard from them. Like, they have feelings too. They're people. Like, if they give you their contact information, they're actually, like, expecting you to hit them up. And, like, they want you to. Like, typically, again, you got some outliers who are just ornery. But typically, people in the field are going to want to help you. So, yes. Oh, that was,
One more short question, or
yes.
I have a question about, like, I guess, like, maybe, like, more so cost and, like, how it felt, going to school out of state and then going to graduate school. Like, I don't know if you, like, got financial aid or, like, accumulated, like, debt or student loans, but, like, how was that? Like, was there, like, that, like, constant feeling of, like, am I really gonna invest all this money? Like, is it gonna pay off? Am I gonna be able to pay this back? Like, that's where I'm currently at right now. So
Yes.
if you have any, like, sentiments to share, like, after getting through those hurdles of, like, academia and then finally being like, okay, I finally made it into the field.
Yes. That is a phenomenal question. I'm so glad you brought this up. So, going to school out of state, prior to going, I heavily researched scholarships. I applied, I didn't get them. I reached back out to some scholarships that I got from undergrad, and unfortunately, some of them they weren't able to carry over. Thankfully, I was able to get a grant that covers my second year of graduate school, and my fulfillment of that grant is by working in the public schools for 2 years. So I've completed 1 full year, I'm entering my second. Being there and on my way there, it honestly was just, I knew I was going to rack up some debt, especially because Hampton University is a private institution. I had decided it was worth it, but also knowing the cost of how much it went there, my rule of thumb is, and you all have to decide for yourselves, if I will not make more than what it costs to go to school there for 1 year, I'm not going. And actually, when it comes to graduate programs that are like 2 years, if I'm not going to make in 1 year what the whole program costs, I'm not going.
Ooh, okay.
Like, I meant that wholeheartedly. So, now, this is just the program. That wasn't counting, like, me taking out extra loans to make sure I could feed myself, because I didn't work in grad school. And I will mention that the graduate schools here in California, specifically for speech language pathology and audiology, they will tell you to your face, do not work. They're like, school is your job. Now, some people will work, and it can affect your grades negatively. However, at Hampton, oh no, my classmates told the teachers, they're like, I can't, do this because I'm working, and my teachers worked it out for them. So again, that's a big difference between the different types of universities, specifically when it comes to HBCUs. Oh my gosh, I am losing it.
it's been a long day.
HBCUs. Okay. Is that they will really work with you. I also tried to think of creative ways to make money or to save. Growing up the way that I did, I knew how to not spend money. I did not know how to save, so I was good at least budgeting and not spending more than what I had. And I will tell you, specifically when it comes to speech language pathology and audiology, and for any career, really look at how much that career is expected to gross in different states, because I don't know if you all plan to stay in California, San Diego, what have you. Look at how much it pays in every state. If the state that you want to live in, if the cost is high, plus it's not going to equal out to what I said earlier, for me, it's a no-go. I knew coming back to California I'd be paid decently, but that is also something that you can always negotiate. So that's something else I would encourage you to do. is negotiate, especially women. Women, we are not expected to negotiate. I negotiate. I have a number set in my head, and if you don't hit that number, really, if you don't exceed that number, I'm walking away. And do not be afraid to walk away. One last thing that I want to say, because I kept bringing up bilingualism, culture, specifically being a black female and being black in the field of speech-language pathology. The field of speech-language pathology is approximately 95% white women. It dropped from being 98% white women, the majority of which who are monolingual. Now, is that a bad thing? No, it's not. However, it's not representative of the clientele that we now have, and that is where the issue lies. So, I want to be clear when you hear people bring that up, is that it is not looking to push out the majority, it is looking to have the field actually reflect the population. And the great thing about this field is that it is very high in demand. It is one of the fields, it's the field that the family friend keeps telling me to this day. She's like, you will only be unemployed if you choose to be. And she has not lied. I have had people knock down my door to try to get me to work. It is the one field where I've had people come to me. So that feels great. So yeah, I hope I sold you on it. If I didn't, remember we're swallowing experts. Yay. And just hope that you never need us in that capacity. But if you need us in another capacity, do not hesitate to seek those services, whether it's for you, whether it's for a family member. And now that you have a little bit more knowledge of what speech-language pathology is, I hope that you will tell others. And if you see that someone may need it, please encourage them to reach out. And you guys are
How can
lovely.
people follow you?
Yes. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, I have a page. It's called Black, like me, and Speechy. It's BLACK, the word and, AND, Speechy, SPEECHIE. I post things on there, and that page specifically is how the field of speech-language pathology and audiology and culture collide. So yes, if you want to speak to me directly, please feel free to come up to me. You can have my
Facebook
email.
too?
Ooh,
I'm just wondering.
not for that.
But this is you on Instagram?
Hey, yeah, it is.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it is. That's me.
Okay. So you're gonna come up and talk with her.
Yes.
Because that's how you network. See ya.
Yes, I'm nice. If you ever see me in the streets, say hey.
All right. This was fun.
Yeah.